So I'm repeating myself, but go ahead and grab the appearance panel uh, and open it up. If you don't see the appearance panel, go to Window Appearance. And what we're going to do is fairly simplistic. We're actually just going to grab each of these blue circles and change their opacity so that you guys can see. So this one, kind of just stepping down. So 90% opacity for that one. And you can kind of see, trying to remind myself what all these options in here do. 80%. Just stepping on down the row. Pretty simple. This part's pretty easy because when we get to the mesh tool, you're going to want to rip your hair out. And the blending modes, we kind of covered these already, but we sort of had the blending modes. I actually have a little bit of trouble remembering exactly how these work inside of Illustrator. I'm a little bit more used to how they work in Photoshop because originally these weren't here in Illustrator. In CS5, I don't think they were there. But I'm kind of used to how they work in there. But anyway, they're kind of grouped. So darken, these three will darken the layer beneath it, or the object beneath it, I should say. So if I select multiply, you can kind of see what it does. It almost becomes a little bit transparent, but it will use those pixels to darken the pixels below it. And with color, and the same thing, right? And they will all kind of do it in different ways. It's hard for me to describe it. You kind of just have to try it and see it. These three blend modes will lighten in different ways, screen being the most common. And this kind of group will kind of do both. If an area beneath it is darker, it will darken it. If an area beneath it is brighter, it will, scratch that. If an area beneath, let's see, the object is brighter, it will darken it. So we'll kind of do both screen and multiply at the same time, depending on what's there. Difference in exclusion. There are some tricks with difference in exclusion. However, they're not like an effect that you would want to apply to your artwork. What you usually use these for is like difference will show you the difference between the two layers and make it really obvious. So there are times when using the difference blend mode will show you what's going on in your artwork, right? So you might quickly change it to a difference and then take a look at your artwork to see what's going on, and then change it back. I don't really have a specific example. When we get to Photoshop, I probably will get around to showing you a trick with that. Likewise with exclusion, they kind of show you that. Hue, saturation, color, and luminosity. These are really useful because it will take this one value and then only use that with the layer beneath it. So if I change hue, it will take the hue. So if it's red or green, right, it will take that hue and then apply it to the layer beneath it. Saturation, it won't change the color at all. It'll still stay, well, in this case, kind of a blue color. It'll stay a blue, but it will change the saturation value to match that of the circle above it. Color is actually, oh, you know what? Scratch that. Hue, let's see, color, oh wait, I remember now. Color is hue and saturation put together. If that confuses you at all, you can see it, honestly. A lot of these I can explain them to you, but seeing it is really knowing it. And then luminosity will only take the brightness values of the object and apply it to the layer beneath it. There is the concept of masking inside of Illustrator. If you're familiar with masking inside of Photoshop, opacity masking is exactly the same thing, sort of. It's very, very similar. What a mask is it's a mask. It's an object. If you imagine a stencil, right? Has anybody ever actually done any kind of stenciling? Any kind of stencil work? That's where you sort of cut out something from a page, right? So you have a piece of paper, and then you cut it out, and then you grab a spray paint, What's the kind of printing that uses this idea? The screen printing, right?
Oh,
Screen printing kind of has like a stencil, sort of.
yeah.
Sort of. It's got dots on it, but it's sort of the same idea. But anyway, so it's a little bit like that in a sense. So what I'm going to do is if you click the text and then shift-click the layer beneath it. So for the clipping mask, I'm going to go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And you'll pretty quickly see what it does is it clips the object beneath it. Really important thing here to do is to have your layers palette open, and it becomes pretty obvious. Let's see, if I fly out this clipping mask by clicking the little triangle icon, I can see here that there's a clipping group, and we can see that the individual objects are still there in their entirety, but one is kind of masking the other. It's almost like I have a stencil, and I'm saying, Illustrator, I only want you to show me the object beneath it that has the stencil, or right? So that the word text is sort of becoming our stencil. But I can still select the object and move it around. If I move it up here, wait, Mike, it disappeared. Well, there's nothing there, right? The rectangle beneath it, which is right here, I could move it around too. Although the pattern is going to stay the same. Oh, that's weird. And I can actually kind of like, if I start to move the text, on the line of that rectangle beneath it, I've got to meatball it. Incidentally, if you're in your layers palette and you ever want to select something, you can always click the meatball. Clicking the layer does not select the actual object. It just kind of selects the path inside of the layers panel. You got to click the meatball in order to select it. What other class would I ever get to say, you got to click the meatball? Anyway. And then opacity masking is, it will actually produce almost exactly the same results, but it's sort of a different way of working. And there's a couple of ways of getting us to this. I'm going to go ahead and use the appearance palette. And if you shift-click both objects, so click the text, hold down the shift key, click the other text. Incidentally, I'm using the black arrow tool. I don't know what this would do with the white arrow tool. I'm kind of curious now. And I'll select opacity, and there's a button under the opacity link, so the word opacity. Not over here. Got to click the word opacity. Kind of looks like a hyperlink. And then you want to select Make Mask. And we can see what it's doing. I could even alt-click the text. Oops, I don't want to do that yet. We can even see that it's kind of created this like black area where it's going to hide everything, and this white area that's going to show everything. It's almost as though, I've got a spray paint can, and I've created a stencil, and I'm spray painting through it, right? Right now they're linked together. So as I move them around, they're going to move around together. But remember, as I move these two objects individually, I can do the same thing with an opacity mask if I unlink them. So I'll check this unlinked text box, unlinked box. And then now the mask, I can move the mask, or the object beneath it rather, in this case, independently of the text. And I can select the text too, I thought. Yeah.
Is there a way of deleting the mask but still keeping the effect?
You can expand it, I think. Usually expanding is how you kind of remove options.
Like we wanted to, like if you get like a bunch of clipping masks and the file was really large, you only need.
Well, clipping mask, you can go to clipping mask, and releasing it will just take it back to normal. Of course, it removed the fill that I had there and replaced it. How do you apply it? How do you apply a clipping mask? Let's see. I thought you could just expand it. It wouldn't rasterize it. You can always release a clipping mask, but that's going to do what it just did. I don't know why you would want to kind of flatten, in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't think that there would be a good reason to do it.
Well, I had a bunch of logos one time, and apparently, I was supposed to take each logo and we're gonna blow them up because they're all vector, and then just put them on like a different, size format.
Oh, I
But
see.
They were all there was a bunch of clipping masks behind them.
Yeah, what you want to do is use the meatballs inside the layer palette. That way you select everything. And then when you want to make them bigger, it should...
See, but the thing
Oh,
was,
it still changed some
there was
things.
so many high-res logos in there that it was, the file was like way too large. We couldn't do nothing with it.
Even with vectors?
Yeah.
It was so large?
It had a lot of, it was like, it was really big. And we were like,
Well,
man,
you could always rasterize it. That's kind of the last option. Because once you get it to the size you want, you could always go to Object Rasterize. Because it will take, Illustrator will work in raster.
okay.
It doesn't like it, but it will. There are even like raster effects that you can apply. But anyway. All right.